Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a little bit of a different video because I just saw the Oppenheimer movie and I loved it. I had heard kind of meh things about it, so I was like trying to keep my expectations low, but for me personally it was amazing and I really enjoyed watching that movie. And so I thought, if you also enjoyed the movie, I would recommend you some books that for me, for one reason or another, make sense to read after Oppenheimer. So obviously the movie is based on a book. The book is called The American Prometheus. So if you want to learn more about kind of the source material, you can definitely go and check that out. I know that this book has also been criticized, that some of the things that are in there are a little bit more fiction or that there is not really any ground to it, especially with the apple scene, I believe. So take that with a grain of salt. But I want to recommend you books that I think just add to the experience, kind of. They don't really have anything to do with Oppenheimer himself, but just things that are related to the movie. So if you're interested in those things, you can expand your knowledge. And we're gonna start off with the first book, the one that inspired this video, and also the one that I don't own. But I absolutely loved it in a way, even though it is very hard to say that about this book. And the book is called Barefoot Gen. It's by Keiji Nakazawa. And this is a graphic novel or a manga, and it is the first in a series. Even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend the series, it is interesting to read on, but I thought the first one was really the most impactful, the only one that I gave 5 stars, because it was just an experience that I had never had before. And I would recommend that you read this manga if you want to see the Japanese side to the atomic bomb. So obviously in Oppenheimer, it's all about how the Americans created the first nuclear bomb. And it was then dropped, or 2 of those were dropped in Japan. And so this manga was created by a survivor of the bombing, and he tells kind of the story of his family, even though it is not, I think, completely autobiographical, but he just captures what he experienced, what he saw other people experience in this manga series. And so in the first book, you are kind of in the Japanese war area. You see what people were thinking, how all thoughts that were not in favor of the war were suppressed, how people were kind of incarcerated if they said anything against the war and stuff like that. And you see these normal people. They're really just a normal family. It is very much a manga, so I feel like you have to at least be okay with the style a little bit. But I grew up watching a lot of anime, so that wasn't really a problem for me. And this book kind of ends right after the bomb. So you see the immediate after effects, and if you want to then learn more about all the stuff that happened later to these people, not on a political level, but just seeing what it did to the people, then you can continue on with that series. And I would highly recommend it if you can stomach the content, because big trigger warning, this is about war and probably one of the most horrifying bombs or weapons that there is on this planet. But I found it to be so, I don't know, I can't even put it into words. It was just an experience that, horrible, but also a reading experience I don't want to miss in my life. So now we're going into a more light-hearted little corner of the world. So if you enjoyed the scenes with Oppenheimer and Einstein, I want to recommend you a German classic. In German it is called Die Physiker by Dürrenmatt, and I'm pretty sure that there might be some translation out there. I really hope so, because this is one of my favorite German classics and I don't really have a lot of those. The author of this was actually from Switzerland, so when I say German, I mean like German language. And this book is so fun because you basically have this setup of a mental health facility where a couple of people are treated, and they are famous physicists. And basically there's a murder, and so someone is coming in to try to figure out what happened, like who murdered that person. And so they meet all of the physicists, and this is just such an interesting discussion about also like yeah, I guess what knowledge can bring to the world. And I just think this is so fun. And as I said, if you have never heard of it, I just want to put it on your radar because it is, yeah, it's just fun, but also like deep, you know? It has definitely also been a couple of years since I read this one last, and after watching the movie, I was so in the mood to reread this, so I might actually do that at some point. Okay, now I've talked about the Japanese experience. Now the next book I want to recommend is if you want to know a little bit more about Japan, but from a different perspective. And that book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And this is a look at Japan through the eyes of Korean people, because there is quite a lot of struggle there. And this book is kind of a family drama that spans a lot of time, but it also spans the Second World War time, and the bombing is mentioned in here as well, even though it is a bit farther away from where the characters that we follow are. But yeah, I think this could be also interesting if you just want to see kind of like the other side in a way, because Oppenheimer is so focused on America. It's a very American movie, let's just say that. So I think it can be interesting to see what other parts of the world looked like during that time. And as I said, since Pachinko is set in Japan, but this different lens with the Korean family, I think this could be a very interesting like further reading. Now this is fiction, but I think it captures the tensions between the people so well, and also just like the overall feel of Japan during these different times. Then I think the next one is kind of very obvious, so I'm not gonna say a lot about this one, but if you want to get a little bit more into the whole theme of, you know, the scientist, the creator, and his creation, I would recommend reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Again, this is one of my favorite classics probably, even though I should definitely reread it soon. I've never studied this in school, which is kind of sad because I would have loved to have those discussions. But yeah, I think this whole struggle in Oppenheimer is something that people wanted to see more of, because I think in the movie it is very visual. We don't really have his thoughts on the whole thing, but we can kind of see or feel his struggle with what he has created in a way. So if you want to have more of that, as I said, Frankenstein is probably your best bet. And then last but not least, a criticism that I have heard of this movie and that I definitely see is that, as with most Nolan movies, women don't really play a big role in it. And so I'm recommending a book / a person to look up, because I don't think that this particular book has been translated, but I'm pretty sure that the person that this is a biography of has like other works that you could look up, or maybe even like other biographies that have been translated. But I chose this person because she lived in a similar time, a little bit earlier than Oppenheimer. But if you might have noticed, and I don't mind if you didn't because it was very hard to notice, but Oppenheimer actually did his PhD in Göttingen, which is a city I've lived in as well for a couple of years. And the whole movie, it does show pictures when they talk about this shortly, but none of that was Göttingen. So I don't know why they chose to completely leave that out. But this woman also lived in Göttingen during that time. So I think learning more about her life might also give you a little bit more of a feel of what it was like to be in Europe, in Germany, in Göttingen during the time. And so that person is Andreas-Salomé, and this book about her is by Kerstin. But as I said, I don't think this particular one has been translated, but I think this is a very interesting woman. Another connection that I see to the Oppenheimer movie is that she was actually a psychoanalyst. Is that how you call it? Like the whole Freud thing. So we have that with Oppenheimer's like first love as well, that she is into psychology and Freud and Jung and stuff like that. So this woman actually knew Freud, and he liked what she did with his like whole psychoanalysis. So I think this would be very, very interesting to read, to see how women lived during that time, whether they actually got to participate in the scientific community. As I said, this is even a little bit earlier than Oppenheimer. But yeah, I think this is a very interesting person, and I hope that one day I will actually read this biography of her. And so these would be 5 books that I would recommend to you if you want to read on after watching Oppenheimer. I would love to hear your suggestions. Like, do you have any books that came to your mind when you watched the movie? I would love to hear about that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like or a nice comment, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!